Welcome back to the Always Reading Book Club. It is your girl Kiki Reader. And I know I'm a couple days late, but what happened is where I live there was a storm and it knocked out my modem. So I had to wait for one to be sent. So I got that today. So I was able to record and get out the final book in the complete Black series by T.L. Smith, White. This book is about Jake. So we remember Jake's left town because he had fallen in love with Rose and he didn't want to sit there and watch her and Black have their happily ever after. He loves them both, on different levels. He didn't mean for that to happen, but it has. And so it was best for him to just kind of distance himself. And so this is 6 months later. So Jake is drinking a lot because he doesn't want to feel. And so as he's leaving the bar, he's hit over the back of the head and everything goes white. So like with Black, how everything goes black? Well, with Jake, everything goes white. So this is how Robbie took him. So actually, this isn't 6 months prior. This is showing us what happens when Robbie took him. So Robbie had then, once they got him to wherever they took him, they stripped him, tied him up. And when Jake came to, Robbie standing over him and it's just like, how does it feel to not be enough? How does it feel to know that she will always just want Black? So then he said, doesn't it make you mad, that she keeps choosing him and not you? So then he injects Jake with something that paralyzes him. And then he started cutting Jake and he turned on the camera. So that was what we saw or what we read in the last book of what Rose and Black saw, was that aftermath, which is so, oh my gosh. So then Black's coming. Jake knows before Robbie does because he can hear his footsteps because he knows those boots. And so Robbie fumbled and got taken out, one in the head. Which to me, I'm like, why are you fumbling? You a whole police officer. I mean, you know that this man is a sniper. So how are you fumbling with a gun? I don't know, but that's what happened. So he got taken out, and then Black leaves even after Jake kept screaming his name. He comes back in and he's like, I'm not picking you up naked. So Jake's like, well, get me some clothes. So he goes and gets him some clothes and he takes him to the apartment that Jake's been renting and tells him that, him and Rose will be back tomorrow. And Jake was like, I don't need either of you to come back. But Black was like, you can't stop her. The next day, both Black and Rose come and she's just all about taking care of Jake. She tells him, she misses him and that his room is still there. Jake was like, well, what does he think? Pointing to Black. And she's still acting as if they're just it's just friends, which it is. But I feel like a part of her has to know that there's a deeper feeling that Jake has. And it's kind of, to me, it's a little bit her being in denial and a little bit selfish. You know what I mean? Because even though he never said it to her, I think she did pick up on that he felt something. She had to. So that's the end of that. He's not going back because he knows that's not a good idea. So he's not going. So it's now been 6 months since the whole Robbie ordeal. And Jake is doing what he normally does, which is go to the bar, drink himself into a slumper, and go home. So his men in the club, they're pissed at him because he really doesn't care about anything dealing with them. He finally looks up one day at the woman that's been serving him all these months, and she's absolutely gorgeous. She has curly, dark hair, beautiful woman. So he literally says that to her, and he calls her sweetheart, and she, of course, says, I'm not your sweetheart. So then all of a sudden, her hand starts shaking, and Black appears, and he's like, I'm not going back. That's what Jake tells Black, and Black says, she's worried about you. So they go outside and they have a conversation. And Black pretty much lets him know, she's not the only one that misses you. I miss you too. You got to remember, that was his brother. You know what I mean? Not just best friend. That was his brother. And so it's kind of like he's having a hard time not having him there too. But Black also knows that he loves Rose. And he even said it to him, like, I know what you feel for her. I know you love her. But I'm asking you to... And I feel like that's just too much to ask of a person. You know what I mean? Like, they got to sit there and watch you being... Like, that's a lot. Like, give him the time that he needs. Like, it's been 6 months. Give him some more time. Like, just give him some time, you know? Like, you all are making this about you two, and he's the one that's been through so much. I don't know. That just seems selfish very much on Rose's part and Black's part. So then Abby is the name of the bartender that has been serving Jake all this time. So when she leaves that night and she locks up, Black approaches her and is like, you know, I know, you know, she's looking at him like, do I know you? She's fearful of him, you know, but she can't place him. Well, Black tells her, stay away from Jake, because if she hurts him, he will hunt her down and everyone she knows. And she knows by the look on his face, he's dead ass serious. So he gives her that promise and he leaves. So she wakes up the next morning and her boyfriend, whose name is Mitch, is on top of her. And she tells him she's on her period. And so he basically tells her, it better be off by tomorrow because I need to fuck. And if you can't, I'll go somewhere else. So in her head, she's just kind of like, well, you can go. But she didn't say it out loud. So then he tells her she needs to go to the doctor tomorrow and get it taken care of. You know, they don't need any children anyway. So then he leaves and she goes to the store and she notices someone's following her. And so when she leaves the store, she runs back to her apartment. She calls Mitch and tells him what happened. And he tells her calmly, a man who owes me a favor is going to be there shortly. Now, here's my thing with this first. The fact that you're telling her that she needs to get rid of her period. It's like, how asinine can you be? But also to her, I'm just kind of like, why in the world? Like, there's got to be some reason she's with him, because this guy that's just awful. And then when she tells him someone's following me, he's like super calm. When he's telling her, oh, okay, someone will be there. He's like super calm. And so he tells her, because at first she's like, I'm not going to go with some stranger. And he tells her, either you go or you're going to be taken out. So you decide. So a guy knocks on the door, and guess who it is? It's good old Jake. So Jake's happy to see her and was like, well, now I don't mind being interrupted from my day. So they are apparently supposed to go somewhere to hide out for a few days. Apparently Mitch helped him with something, but we don't exactly know what it is just yet. So Jake takes her back to his place, which is where the biker gang lives. And he puts her in the hooker room. Yes, they have a hooker room. And then he goes to sleep. So he wakes up to his phone ringing, and it's Mitch saying that bitch keeps calling my phone. I told you to take care of her, you know. And so then the Mitch guy says, I don't care anymore. Let her get taken out. I'm done with her. Hangs up the phone. So then Jake goes downstairs and finds her with the other women and tells her no more phone. Because one of the women had let her use one of their phones. Because I guess she probably just told him, oh, I need to talk to my boyfriend. Because you got to remember, nobody else knows why she's there. So they probably said, oh, here, use my phone. So Jake had to tell her no more phone. He was like, or you can go back and you can take your chances. So her dumbass says, Mitch wouldn't let anything happen to me. And he tells her the truth about, he's like, you got great tits and a great ass, and you're pretty, but nothing more. And then he just walks off. I'm like, damn. Later that night, she goes back outside, since that's where everyone is, and she sees Jake with the chick on his lap, but he's mostly focused on the beer in his hand. So then someone tries to grab Abby, and she winds up taking the gun away from the guy and pointing it at him. So clearly she's got a little martial, she knows some moves. And so this gets Jake's attention, and he was like, well, I like your moves. Are they the same way in the bedroom? So he then takes the gun from her, and she tells him that, she isn't going back to the hooker room. Still stuck that they have a hooker room. And then he tells her, well, if you come in my room, we got to play. So she was like, I don't want to sleep with you. And he lets her in the room anyway. Tells her, he sleeps in the nude. So he just strips right in front of her. And she sees the scarring on his body and wonders, like, what happened to him. And then he gets in bed, and she gets in bed, but she keeps her clothes on. So the next morning, Jake gets up, talks with one of his guys, and they're like, she needs to go. She's trouble. So then they tell him that her boyfriend is out front. So Mitch says he came to get her, and, whatever happens to her, happens to her. But then after a little ruffling up from Jake, because Jake's like, there's got to be more to this, he says that he needs her for a few more days because she helps him make money. But again, we don't know exactly how. So Jake goes back upstairs to get her, and at first she was like, she's just going to go back and take her chances with Mitch. Well, when she goes outside to leave with Mitch, he kisses her, but it's all wet and it has no feeling. And she thinks about what Jake said and decides she's going to stay with Jake. So Mitch is pissed. He finally leaves. Then she tells Jake she's staying, and he says, I figured. So she tells him, I'm staying in your room. I'm not going back to that hooker room. So then he tells her, okay, but if, he was like, I might get you in the middle of the night. So then Jake leaves, and a woman comes in with him, and she's really nice, and everyone seems to like her. And she introduces herself, and it's Rose. So, of course, Abby's thinking how different he is with her and wonder, like, what exactly is this relationship? Which I think is a normal reaction. If you notice someone's like gruff, 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 and then they get around a certain person and then you notice a completely different side to them, oh yeah, you're going to wonder like, okay, well, what exactly is their relationship? So Jake and Rose have a chat outside, and she basically just lets him know she's worried about him. And when he sees that and tells him, when you see that you're not as broken as you think, then you'll be okay. And then she finally leaves. So Buddy, who is, I think he's the vice president of the club, he comes out, and we find out he called Rose to come over. So then he goes back inside to his room and sees all of Addie's stuff on the bed. And then his gymnast, Sōra, comes over. She wants to play. So they go to the hooker room, and they have a nice hard fuck, which involves knife play. So Jake likes to cut, and she likes to be cut, not deep, but just enough to draw blood. This is weird to me, but people have their preferences, okay? So he doesn't know why he doesn't want more with Sōra, because this is the type of sex that he likes. But it's pretty much like after the sex with her, he just wants her to go. He just wants her gone. So when they finish fucking, he sees Addie standing at the door, and then she runs off. So Sōra watches him and says, you like her, but you fucked me. So he doesn't answer. He just goes after Addie, not sure what he's even going to say. So Addie runs to Jake's room. She locks the door. Jake bangs on the door, but she doesn't move. Then the window goes up, and in crawls Jake through the window. And she's like, is that what you like? Because she saw the knife at Sōra's neck, and then the pure bliss when he fucked her and they both came. So she's afraid of him, yet she's intrigued. So all of a sudden they hear a loud scream, and Jake leaves to go see what's happening downstairs. Addie gets hit with a bullet in the shoulder. She grabs the gun from the nightstand, but it's there's footsteps coming towards her, but it's Jake. He carries her out, but then she sees all the dead bodies, and then she passes out in the truck. So when she wakes up, we find out she's at Rose's house, and little Liam is, just not Liam, Hayden. He's like, are you okay? So then Rose comes in and tells her, I stitched you up the best I could, but you will have some scarring. So she tells her that she does this basically for Jake, because you go to a hospital, bullets equal cops and investigations. So Black comes home and is playing with the kids, and then he sees Addie, and he's looking at her like she's his next hit. So Jake says as much to him, and he tells him, yeah, because she is. So he tells her she's got 24 hours before he comes after her. And he says, do you want to tell him why Mitch really wants you and who wants you dead? So she doesn't say anything and just leaves with Jake. So they get in the car, and all she says is that she's sorry, and then tells him that there was a child and her father is very wealthy and that she was sold. That's all she tells him. I'm like, why you just couldn't just say what it is? I'm just saying, why not? You know, the men came in there, they were shooting up the place, so all those people got killed because they were coming for you. So I'm sorry, I just feel like at that point, even if it's a hard story for you to tell, this is probably the point where you should just tell him what's really going on. He's kind of earned it. So he takes her to Black's house, and because she doesn't want to talk, she tries to distract him, and it works, and so they wind up fucking. He says to her before they start, no kink, and she says, no, no, no. But he kisses her, and it's just with so much passion, and he grabs her ass, and everything is just so intense with him, and she just absolutely loves it. And so he makes sure she comes, which Mitch never did, and he had told her when they started, it was only going to happen 3 times, because he has this rule, he only fucks 3 times. Sōra is the only person that he fucks more than that, and that's because she enjoys the kink that he likes. So after they were done and laying there naked, she says to him, you love her, don't you? And he kind of gave the explanation of loving her, but like that he felt like it was an extension of the love that he felt for Black, and maybe that's why, or like an extension of Black and Rose's love, and like him being around her for so long, like he just kind of started to feel that. And I mean, that could be partly true, or it just could be the fact that you were around someone that was a really nice person that, was a genuine good person. And that can be sometimes kind of hard not to fall for. And I think that's probably more so what happened. So she asked him some other questions. And when he asked to tell him more, she was like, fuck me. So he does it. Now he knows she's trying to distract, but he doesn't care because hell, he's not going to turn it down. So when he wakes up the next morning, she's gone. So Black comes in and like, where is she, Jake? And Jake was like, she left. And Black says, you always fall for the wrong woman. He was like, but if you love her, I won't do it. So Jake doesn't say anything, but tells him, if I don't, but Black says, if I don't, someone else is going to come after her. And Jake is about to leave when he tells Black, oh yeah, and I fucked her on your bed. And Black is like, there are 2 other rooms in this house. And Jake leaves and finds her in town, and she tells him the story. So she had an arranged marriage that she didn't want to go through with. Her father paid Mitch to take her and thought that she would see how bad the other life was and come running back to him, but she didn't. So apparently the arranged marriage was something dealing with banking, the other guy. So it was going to increase the father's power. He's already filthy rich, but it was going to increase the power as well as more money. So there's a black car that's waiting for her, and she kisses him softly, and he grabs her, kisses her again, gives her a nice deep sensual kiss, and then she walks away. So she goes to her father's large penthouse, and he, of course, was like, you have to go back. That's part of the arrangement. So we find out what happened. So years ago, while she was driving, she got into an accident, and her mother was in the car. Her mother has been on life support since, and her father wanted to marry her off, so he didn't have to see her, because clearly he blames her for the accident. And yes, he still, he definitely still wanted her also married to this other person, because the guy was from a banking company, and this was going to increase his money and his power as well. So she said no, and thus the reason he pays Mitch a hefty sum each month to take and treat her badly. and so that she's going to come running back and marry this other guy. The problem is she's grown independent. She doesn't want to come back. So the father has gotten Mitch to the house and tells her that she's got to go back. Her father tells her that he saw her with that man and saw the way she looked at him, and he's a bad man and she needs to stay away from him. He also tells her to go see her mother for the last time. So this apparently is always a threat that he says to her. I guess he's going to pull the plug, I guess. And this is just awful. I mean, the whole thing's awful. The fact that you're paying a person to treat your child badly so that you can get them to do what you want is awful. The fact that you sit there and tell her, like, as a threat, this will be the last time you see your mother, like you gonna pull the plug on the woman, is just pure awful. I'm like, where did they find these parents? Jeez Louise. So she goes in to see her mom, and then Mitch comes in to get her, and someone comes from behind and hits Mitch in the head with a baseball bat, knocking him out cold. And it was the bodyguard that had taught her self-defense, which is why she knew those moves when she was younger. So he tells her, you run as far as you can, because he knows Mitch is going to come after her. And we find out, and actually before that, Mitch had a conversation. No, Mitch had a conversation with Addie about Jake. So Mitch was the one who had told Robbie where Jake was so that he could kidnap him. And so he knows everything that Jake went through. Just so awful. So Jake is at a cookout at Rose and Black's place. Sax and Casey are there, and their kids, and some other like work associates. Addie pops up and she's bleeding, and Jake goes straight to her and says, who did this to you? But she won't talk. So they go in the back, and he was ready to like get it in, but she was like, take me home. And tells him that basically it's just going to be the two of them, like almost like she says, like, I'm glue, you're paper and I'm glue, and we're always going to stick together, like it's going to be you and me. She pretty much just let him know, I'm feeling this, it's you, right? So they go back to Black House, and she tells him what happened, and he says to her, you want to know what happened to me? And he tells her the story. And of course she starts to cry. So after he tells her about what happened, he tells her that, they aren't going to work because what he needs isn't something he's going to force on her. And he likes his kink. And so she gets her stuff and she leaves. So he goes to the clubhouse a week later, helps with a shipment. He has a new supplier, tells the supplier not to supply Mitch. He goes to Mitch's place, and Abby's there, and she tells him, she only has a couple more months with Mitch and that she didn't have anywhere else to go. Well, Jake asks her to come with him, and then Mitch puts a gun to Abby's head and says he apparently has a wife and is going to have fun with his new wife and Abby. So then he closes the door, and complete fear is on Abby's face. So Jake went to Mitch's place. Mitch is married to Sōra. How crazy is that? So apparently Mitch lets her fuck other, he okay. They got an open marriage. He fucks other people, and she allows him to fuck with Jake because he wanted to make Jake fall in love with Sōra, but he hasn't fallen in love with Sōra. Apparently, he wants everything that Jake has. So Sōra is jealous because she feels she can give Jake everything that he needs because she's into his type of kink. Then while she calls Jake on the phone, which is after she made Abby get naked and lay out and everything, she cuts her, and Abby screams out. So Jake hears it and tells her, let her go. And, come scratch this itch for me. Well, that gets her attention. and that allowed Abby to like get away, and so she runs to her apartment. So Jake and Black come to get her. She's still mad at Jake, but which I'm like, why are you mad at him? Like, you may be, yeah, you may feel something, but he's letting you know he likes certain things that he sees, like, put fear in your eyes. You know what I'm saying? So why would he try and force that, and why would you try and force what you want on him? I feel like that was the best. I think he made the right decision telling this is not going to work. I don't think that was bad. So Black is gonna help her get away. She's mad at Jake, whatever, but Black is still gonna help her get away. Jake is in a funk. Black knows it, but wants to take Mitch out, and Mitch is in hiding. So Black tells him that Sōra wants to see him, and to see her in like a couple days, and that's gonna draw Mitch out. So later that night at the clubhouse, a woman wants to fuck, and so he gives her a fuck on the side of the house. But he couldn't like really get into it, so he didn't even come. He just like pushed the woman away. I'm like, damn. And he goes to his room and he calls Abby, and she answers. And he tells her, I'm sorry about your mother, and that he wants to see her he wants to see her. And she said, well, I'm going to be in town tomorrow to meet with the lawyer, because that's the reason he was saying, I'm sorry about your mother, because her mother has passed. So she agrees to meet with him at a coffee house. So they meet and talk a little, and she tells him she's going to see her father, and he tells her, I'm coming with you. So they pull up to the high rise and go in. And when they pull up to that high rise, Jake realizes, oh, you're rich, So they go up, and her father looks completely a mess. And when she tells him that she went to see the lawyer, the first thing that comes out of his mouth is like, oh, what does he want? More money? And she gives him the bombshell. And it was that everything he had put everything in her mother's name, and her mother had changed everything in the will to go to her. So this, of course, is something she had done way before, clearly, the accident. She's been incapacitated ever since. But she had changed it, so now everything belongs to Addie. I was like, whoop! And he looked at her, and the father was like, no, she wouldn't do that. She wouldn't have done that to me. So then she tells him, you have 10 days to leave this property. And he goes to slap her, and Jake stops him. And then the father was like, you're choosing him over me? And it's kind of like, of course I'm going to choose him over you. I mean, at least let's be honest. Jake has tried to, save her from some deadly type of predicaments that the father, puts her in. So that's not too far-fetched for her to, choose someone else over you. You've been a piss poor type of a parent, like a piss poor human being. You know what I mean? So Addie leaves, and Jake, of course, is kind of depressed, and he's going to be that way for a little while. So then Jake is going to get back at Sōra, so he has her coming over later one of these evenings. And she's thinking she's, about to get the kinkiest night of her life. And so Jake ties her up and with rope and everything. And she's like getting so hot and heavy, and she's just so like, oh my gosh, And then he starts to cut her hair. And she has like these really beautiful red curls. He cuts it, like some parts are like patches to where he went to the oh my gosh. I could only imagine how she must have looked, like, you know what I mean? Going like all the way to her scalp. That's crazy, but that's what he did to her. And she screamed bloody murder. She was so pissed and so upset. So of course she leaves and she runs home, tells Mitch, and now Mitch apparently wants to put one in Jake's head. So then we find out Addie, she's purchased a bar. She works there as well. She has a friend that works there named Becca. They've gone out on this speed date. Of course, Addie didn't like it at all. Becca loved it. She gets a phone call from Rose, and Rose is inviting her to a party. I think it was a birthday party. And It's like, everyone's going to be there. So we find out that Rose and Addie, like, they have conversation, but Rose never talks about Jake. Addie never brings up Jake. And so, but at the end of this conversation, she told her, Jake's going to be there. So she just tells her, I'll let you know. Because it was kind of like a short notice. I think it was like 2 weeks away. So the next day at work, Becca was talking to Addie. And she was like, I heard you on the phone. Are you possibly going to go back to see the guy? And Addie tells her, he scares me because of the type of sex that he's into. And so Becca's like, oh, he likes kink? And Addie's just kind of like, you know what kink is? And she's like, yeah, what is he into? Like anal play, knives? And she's just talking about it so normal. And so it shocks Addie. And Becca's kind of like, get the stick out of your ass, figure out why he likes it. Sometimes people just find pleasure in that. And if it's about pleasure, that's great. But if it's solely about pain, then you are going to want to run for the hills. But she was like, basically, you're not going to know until you kind of try, or at least ask, try and find out why. So Black and Jake, they've got a plan of how they're going to take out Mitch. So Sōra leaves the house, and when she leaves, they look through the window. They can see Mitch is on the bed playing with his cell phone. And so when he finally notices them and he tries to reach for his gun, Black shoots the gun out of his hand. And then he tries to grab it again, but he winds up falling flat on his face. So then Jake turns him over and stabs him in the stomach. And then outside, they have cement that they've mixed together, I guess. What do you do? Cement and water or whatever to make it work? And Jake likes that whole buried alive thing. I think he really does. Because I think it's like pure torture. So then they put him in the mixed cement. He's going down. And he's screaming. And then they stuff a sock in his mouth. And Jake was going to watch him die. And then he was like, you know what? I'm just going to go. And Black was thinking like, hell no. We went through this the last time. You didn't take the bitch out. And we had a whole problem. So Black turned around and he shot him one right between the eyes. Because he's like, I ain't going through that no more. So they go back to Rose. And Rose tells them she's invited Addie to the party. And he's kind of like, she's coming. And she's like, I don't know, but I invited her. And so this is the first time that he's finding out, Jake is finding out as well, that Addie and Rose communicate with one another. Of course, Addie comes to that party. And her and Jake see each other, and it's absolutely magnetic. They dance, they kiss, and they go back to her hotel. And she wants to be a little rougher, which he was, and he loved it, and so did she. And he didn't he didn't feel like he needed to cut or anything like that. So that's good, And he felt the high without it. So he was like, damn, maybe I don't need to do all that type of stuff. So, and it also let him know, maybe I might be able to be okay. So that was good. So the next morning she has to leave. She has a flight out, and she tells him basically she wants to write letters. No phone, just write letters. Let's just get to know each other. And so at first he was just kind of like, huh? But he agreed to do it. And she doesn't want to do to him what she kind of feels like Rose and Black. Let me say it correctly. She knows if she were to ask him to come with her, he would come. And she knows that Rose and Black and the children, like, that's his family. And she doesn't want to be selfish and ask him to do that. She wants to think of his needs. So that's why she's come up with, let's just get to know one another. And then if we venture to that place where we can be together, then we'll get there. They start exchanging letters, and they are absolutely beautiful. And what makes them even more beautiful is the rawness and the realness of those letters. They're just very honest with one another, writing in there how they feel, how, this seems strange. And yet it being that they can write these words, it's like it gives them freedom, and they're saying things more so than they had anticipated, you know? And that's always like super sweet. One of her last letters she had wrote that basically she was falling for him, and in his letter he had stated to her he'd already fallen. And I was like, oh, that's just so sweet. So he goes to the bar, and of course it's just like, she's just like, oh my gosh. She drops what she had picked up, because her friend Becca had like dropped a tray of stuff and she had picked it up, and then when she saw him she just dropped it again. So Jake walks up to her and he cleans up the stuff that she dropped. And then she tells him, to meet her at her place, I'm sorry. And he already has the address because that's where he sends the letters. So she gives him the key and she lets him know it's going to be a couple hours when she can close up. So then she's about to close up and she gets a call from a number she doesn't recognize, and it's Black. And he's like, you need to get to Jake now. And then all she knows is that everything goes black. So before Black had called Addie, he had called Jake and was telling Jake to get back to Addie quick. And so when he gets back to the bar, she's already gone and there's blood on the door. So he still has Black on the phone and he's like, who took her? Where is she? And Black's like, give me some time to track her. So then we find out that Sōra took her because she had been following Jake when he was coming to see her. So they get the address. Jake goes there and she has Addie tied up and basically wants to take Addie out in front of him, or at least just hurt him, just because she found Mitch and the cement, so she knows Jake did it. So she tells a story that basically Addie was supposed to spy on Jake, and she did it for like 2 weeks, and then she was like, I can't do it anymore, because she already saw that he was already drowning him, in booze every night. So it's not, she didn't want to do it. Now, I don't think could it be considered a lie of omission? Maybe, yeah. I guess it could be. She did withhold that, and she could have told him that. I think, honestly, that could have been something she said in the letters. If you were able to say all this other stuff, you should have been able to kind of say that. I will say that. I will. So Jake, of course, is hurt by this. And Sōra cuts Addie's leg. And some kind of way, Jake got over there fast and he like stabbed her in the eye. So he took her out. And so when they're leaving, he's just like, can you walk? And she's walking and she's trying to apologize to him. And he's just like, you lied to me. And so she apologized. And when she's like, I'm sorry. She's like, I didn't mean, I meant to tell you, but it's like I couldn't find the right time to say it. She had agreed to do it because it was pretty much going to cut off like some of her time with Mitch. And so that's why she had agreed to do it. But then, of course, seeing that he was already drowning, she couldn't do it. And so she stopped. So it's not like she really gave any information, really. You know what I'm saying? There was nothing to get from him. He came in there and he drunk. He didn't talk. He would just drink. So it's not like there was much information that she could give anyway. So a couple of weeks go by. She hasn't heard from Jake. And she's calling Rose. And basically Rose tells her, he's been getting himself together. He quit the club. He works with Sax and Black doing security. And he's seeing a therapist. And, like he's really trying to get himself together. He's, stopped the drinking and everything. Like he's really trying. And she was just like, I'm not trying to change him. I wasn't. And she says, no, I understand that. But he realized there were some changes he needed to make for himself. So we find out Jake's still in town. And she goes to one of the local motels and find him there. He's off the wagon. It smells like a pigsty. He's drunk. It's just a mess. And she tells him, I'll be back tomorrow. Don't drink. And I will be back tomorrow. And he says something like, yeah, I'll do it if you spread your legs. And then she slams the door. So the next day she comes. He didn't drink anymore. He stopped, and they do the whole introduction thing, saying, "Hi, I'm Jake. Hi, I'm Addie." And they really just start over, just getting to know one another. So he's really upset with himself because he felt like he allowed himself to go in a dark place, because when they were in the truck after, rescuing her basically from Sōra, he had like grabbed her by the neck, when he thought she, with the whole lion thing or whatever. And he just felt horrible that he went to such a dark place, and that just tore him apart. And so that's why he pretty much locked himself up in that hotel room and just got completely wasted. So they had gone to a little cafe, and when he first saw her at the bar, he had told her, "Your boobs look bigger." And she kept saying, "No, they're not." But then when they were at the cafe, he said it again. And then she thought about it, and she was like, "Shit, they are bigger, and I haven't had a period." So they go to the store, take a test. Old girl's pregnant. So the next morning, they have a little sex session. Well, they had to have a little sex session that night. And then the next morning, he leaves a note, and he says that he's got to get himself together, especially now that there's a baby on the way. He doesn't want to ever hurt her or the child, and he's got to go get himself together. And so he gets a call from her in the middle of the night, probably like a month later, and she says, "I'm bleeding." And so he calls Becca to go to her. He gets on a flight to get to her. They never say, or I don't remember reading where she exactly went, but clearly far enough that he's got to get on a plane. But he gets on a plane. He gets there. When he gets there to the hospital, she's crying. She lost the baby. And he just kisses her because his kisses seem to calm her. And she's still, of course, super sad. So he's decided, he's going to move and he's going to live with her. They're going to be together. And so then we fast forward a few years later. They're still together, but she's going to become a shell of herself, because she has had 4 pregnancies that have miscarried. And so Jake comes home one day, and he's like sore in that area, and she asks him like, "Well, what's wrong?" He says, "I went and got a vasectomy." And I was like, shit. And she's like, "Why would you do that?" And he told her, he was like, "I can't keep watching you hurt yourself." Like, she was obsessed with trying to be pregnant. She was looking up all these different, what are they called? I don't want to say remedies. It's another word I want to look, but I can't think of it. But basically trying to look at any kind of way to try and get pregnant. And it was driving her crazy. And he wanted her to know that she was enough. But her brain, she wanted him to have, children, because she saw how great he was with Rose's kids, and she felt like he should have his own. And he was just like, "All I want is you. If I have you, I have a great life." And it kind of sunk in. And then she realized, because he told her, he's like, it can be reversed, but she realized she didn't want to take herself through that pain anymore. And so she was like, "You know what? Nah, don't reverse it. It's too painful to go through that. Let's just let it be you and me." And that's how it ends. I was very shocked. I liked this. And when I first started, I saw it was going to be about Jake. I was kind of like, because I was like, I thought I was going to get a little bit more Black and Rose. But then we still get Black and Rose in this. And I feel like their story was done pretty much, They were together. They were going to be together. Probably wasn't too much more we could talk about. And his story with Addie was like very interesting. So I was like very pleasantly surprised with how it ended. And also I like that it doesn't always have to end with we have a kid and we're happily ever after, but it can be like the two people and they're happy. I did like that aspect of it, because a lot of times it always winds up being, like, oh, we have a baby and now we're complete, but being that they were complete together, I did like that. So that was super cute. What did you guys think of the Complete Black series? What did you think of this book? Any comments about any of the 3 books? Black, red and white. Please drop down in the comment section below and let me know what you think. If you are in the market for a beautiful notebook or journal, I do have some of those on sale, and I will have that link down listed in the description as well. As always, I truly do thank you all for your support, and thank you for tuning in to the Always Reading Book Club.